Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All
Can
right,
you?
good. Sorry about the messy background. In 2025, it's going to be much better.
We're making all sorts of resolutions already, are we?
No, just planning, getting things done.
All right, that's the best way to do it.
That's right. And next time I'll be shaven. Today I'm lazy.
Uh, I was hoping to shave too, but it's okay. We can go in scruffy. No worries.
That's right. It's a weird movie, and it's probably the last episode of last show that we'll do this year.
Yes, because it is almost 2025, and it's indie scene. It's 2024 has just been kind of a weird year all around, especially for this show. Life is just busy and complicated, and I had these grand ideas about scheduling, and all that seems to have collapsed right under my feet. But 2025 is a new year, new possibilities, as they say. So we're
Hmm.
gonna come roaring back then. But in the meantime, Sujewa, we're gonna close out this very strange year with a very strange movie from a very strange director that we discussed very, very recently, Hong
Hmm.
Sang-Soo. His latest film, A Traveler's Needs, just opened this weekend at the Gene Siskel Film Center, and I caught it on the big screen. Unlike his last two films, which we discussed, which I watched on streaming, I actually went out. I paid a ticket to see it. I sat in a theater with a decent amount of people and watched it
Awesome.
unfold before my eyes. So we're going to talk about all that tonight and why I may be banning discussion of Hong Sang-Soo films from the Kicking the Seat podcast.
Hmm.
We'll see.
No
How
more
you
Hong
doing, sir?
Sang-soo for you.
What's that?
No more Hong Sang-soo for you.
I think I'm just gonna need some kind of confirmation that the 90-minute film has, more than 20 minutes worth of pages on the screen.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because in my experience, it's a lot of waiting and a lot of waiting for things that feel improvised and not particularly thought out as far as what we might consider to be traditional filmmaking. And that's fine, especially because in the world of independent films, you can go crazy. I just would rather go crazy than go to sleep.
Hmm. Hmm.
So tell me, sir, how you doing, first of all?
Pretty good. Busy working on the new script and getting new looks ready and prepping for the new movie. And the plan in 2025 is to make one feature a month or one feature every 2 months. So it's a completely different way of doing things than I've ever done before.
And how are you preparing for that?
Getting things organized, getting scripts ready, fundraising, just a lot of prep that usually I prep for one feature, and then there's like a couple of years or a year between each one. But now I'm going to prep for, you know, try to do one every month or two, try to do all 54 movies in a row, maybe, every month, every 2 months. So it's just a different scale of thinking.
So when you say you're going to make a movie every month or two, is that making them and releasing them, or just making them and then you've got some in the pipe and then you're going to release them gradually while you're working on the other things? Like, how's that? What's the release going to look like?
Release is going to happen as soon as possible. I mean, the new movie probably will be done in January. Then I'm gonna schedule a New York City screening probably for March, and I'm gonna check out some festivals, see if we can get into some festivals for additional press. So within a couple of months of being completed, each movie will come out.
Wow, and you've got this all mapped out. You're ready to go. When you
Working on
think
it.
about this, well, okay, well, yeah, you're working on it, but like when you think about this, what is your biggest, I guess, challenge, or is there an obstacle you're like, okay, in this crazy production schedule, this very ambitious film production landscape that you're mapping out, what's the big challenge? You're like, if I don't hit this or if I run into this, I'm sunk.
Stay organized. Stay on top of all to-do items outside of the film production stuff that affects the film production stuff, time and money, and fundraising. So yeah, it's a big challenge. I'll document it as it gets done, but I think it can be done.
Is it like when you say organized, are you like a spreadsheet guy? You're just taking like notes? Is it all in your head? How do because again, I'm going to use that word ambitious.
Sure.
It's quite the undertaking. So how do you keep it all straight?
Calendars and notes and folders.
Virtual ones, I assume. Or
Yeah,
do you?
yeah, on the computer.
I just imagine you with one of those giant like folding, folder things from like the 80s or something. But
It happens.
no, well, like, okay, so 53 spaceships, that's the one that you're gonna finish in January. So are each of the subsequent films are going to be kind of offshoots of that kind of master project, is that right?
Yeah, 53 spaceships will have at least 53 scenes or more where my character and other people are talking about each of the spaceships that have to be located,
Hmm.
and that'll be that movie. And and then they'll be looking for the spaceships, and there's a bunch of other stuff going on, of course. And I'm going to create teaser trailers from little clips from each of those segments. 54 teaser trailers or 53 trailers. And then we're going to go into the next movie, which will be about one of the spaceships and about three other plots. So kind of like Breakthrough Weekend, I think. Since you've seen a bunch of my movies, I can
Hmm.
just use that as a shorthand. So these each one of these movies going to be like some of my older movies. 53 spaceships is kind of going to be like slow romance, except we have spaceships, shots of other parts of the world, lots of sci-fi action happening, but it's primarily going to be a conversation-driven movie.
And then the kind of subsequent ones, you're talking like features, right? These aren't
Yeah,
just be like
it's all features.
53 shorts. It's going to be actual feature length films
Hmm.
based offshoots of this one idea. So let me ask you this. You're committing to this idea. It's going to take years to complete, right?
Yeah.
Um, what happens if you get a germ for another series, another kind of movie you want to make in the interim? Do you say, okay, that's going to have to wait until 2032 or whatever?
It might have to wait, but if I do one movie a year, no, one movie a month, it'll
Right.
be about 4.5 years for all 54.
Wow.
At
All right.
least, if I can at least finish up a script a month, and then one movie every 2 months, that will be like 8 9 years. So rest of the 2020s
Well,
and beyond.
and beyond for sure. I mean, we might actually be exploring space, by the time you get to by the time you get to the end of this.
The film
Um,
number 54. I mean, yeah, we're already exploring space. We might actually meet aliens by then.
well, that's what I'm saying. Like we're gonna have encounters. Maybe you can shift some of your storylines to
Sure.
match what's in the news.
Hmm. Yeah, this is one of the reasons I'm doing this is YouTube needs content. So if you're growing your YouTube channel, so eventually I want to get these movies out to theaters and then other VOD and YouTube. So I'll have a bunch of movies coming to my YouTube channel in the future.
Yeah. How's the like the films you have up there? Are they still running strong? Like how do you gauge that? How that performance is?
Renee is doing really well. I haven't last couple of months. I haven't done a lot of promo work, but it's still at like 472,000. And I think since the last time we talked, it's gotten at least 1,000 new views. Um, so yeah, it's progressing. I want to get that channel to about 1 million views as soon as possible. So I'm going to work on that for the rest of this month and January.
Wow. It's a hell of a launch, or like a platform to springboard off of that for the new projects.
Right.
Yeah, man, congratulations.
Thank you.
Um,
Getting it done. I mean, with filmmaking, the goal always has been, going back to 1992, uh, is to make some stuff that could be promoted worldwide, fame, some wealth, So this is the new way to do it, I think, because YouTube has 2 billion monthly users. So there's an audience, a potential audience, and a way to reach them. So let's see if these movies can break through and can if I can get like 1 million views for each movie within a year or so, and by the time this project is done, that'll be like 54 million views. That's pretty good. I think that's famous. What do you think? That's fame, right?
Uh, I have no idea how the internet works or YouTube or anything. I mean, if I did, I'd probably be much further along than I am. But no, I mean, I think it's a great ambition, um, and you're definitely making it work. So, and you're monetizing all that, so you're going to be able to see in real time how this affects your are you gonna be fundraising, I assume, at least for part of it, and then depending on how this goes, the money that comes in from the films showing on YouTube, maybe they'll fund future projects?
Yeah, that's the plan. I've been with my stuff that's on VOD and on Vimeo and YouTube. I've used that stuff to apply for grants, talk to funders, donors, and I've been able to raise money off of that stuff. The actual YouTube monetization is very close. I think maybe in a month or two. I keep missing my 1 year 4,000 views deadline because a lot of my views were prior to Renee, and Renee came out about a year ago, maybe less than a year ago.
I
So
see.
Renee is my best performing movie, so I'm gonna have to figure out how to get 4,000 public view hours because a lot of people check it out for like a couple of minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. So it doesn't add up to a whole lot on YouTube, but eventually we will be able to monetize directly through YouTube, sell merch, do all the other stuff. So this is why you need you know, uh, pipeline, a steady stream of content that's good, that's of interest to people. If you want to blow up your YouTube in a major way,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
yeah.
the,
Soon I have to launch a GoFundMe for the new movie, plus merchandise sales and a bunch of other fundraising stuff.
cool. Alright, let's transition to our good friend
The
Hong
movie.
Sang-Soo. Yeah, um,
So I had a good time watching that movie at the movie theater.
tell me about that. So, because you look, okay, IMDb describes A Traveler's Needs as a drama.
Hmm.
You describe it as a comedy.
Hmm.
The people I was with, in the theater, I went by myself, but as I mentioned, there are other people in there. There was a chuckle
Hmm.
and some groaning and squirming. Tell
There's
me.
some there's some uncomfortable moments.
No, I mean, not like uncomfortable, like The Office uncomfortable humor, but more like uncomfortable as in, can we go soon? A lot of shifting in seats.
Right.
So let me ask, well, first of all, would you be so kind as to synopsize A Traveler's Needs for us?
Sure. Hong Sang-soo's new movie, Traveler's Needs, is Isabelle Huppert. I think that's how you pronounce her name. Famous French actress. She plays a person who shows up in South Korea, offers unusual French lessons to her clients, and we basically have a minimalist movie, kind of like a Jarmusch mystery train type movie, where like it's 3 or 4 separate stories, and our main character goes through them, and that's the movie.
Yeah, yeah,
Plus 3 or 4 encounters.
yeah, and I think that's kind of my frustration with it is that, as I mentioned, that 20 minutes of actual like screenplay stretched out into 90 minutes.
Hmm.
A lot of my issues with it was pacing. I'll admit, I mean, I saw this at 3:45 on a Friday,
Hmm.
so I was kind of in prime. Like I'm not watching at 10 o'clock at night or, or 4 in the morning. I'm like
Right.
ready to engage, but it is so uh, relaxed, I
Hmm.
guess, even more so than I think the other films we talked about of his. That I had honestly, I had trouble. My mind wandered.
Hmm.
I found myself like when you're thinking about something and you're trying to focus on it, you get so focused on it that you get distracted and then something snaps you back into the focus at hand. That happened throughout this movie. My mind wandered. I sort of started going into that nodding off space, and then someone would talk and be like, "Oh, wait, where were we?" Because there's so many pauses
Right.
in this film that it's unbelievable. It's like an endurance test in some ways.
Mhm. Did you, well, at, 2 items. At my theater, people were laughing from the beginning, and they were engaged, so that made it interesting for me to watch at a film forum here in New York. I think it was a Sunday afternoon that I saw a couple of weeks ago. Now of all the Hong Sang-Soo movies I've seen, watching them at home is very difficult for me. I mean, I just finished one, it took me 2 days. I had to do, like, 2 days of restarting 4 or 5 times. That was in our day that, another one that just came out this year. Um, so that was very difficult. But with the big screen, with an audience, and I'm sort of locked in there, focused. I enjoyed watching this movie, A Traveler's Needs at film forum at the big screen.
And I understand how that, I understand that perspective, but for me, it's almost the reverse.
Hmm.
Because yeah, when we were watching In Front of Your Face and a novelist film, we discussed those. Those came out within like a year of each other or 2 years.
Hmm.
And as with this film, I can't speak for all of Hong Sang-soo's movies, so I've only seen 3 so far, but he does this thing where he casts the same people. I mean, there are the same actors where in this film as in the other 2, or a lot of them. Isabelle Huppert is the sort of the new, cast member, our gateway into this world. They're not playing the same characters, but
Hmm.
there are sort of the same dynamics in a way with actors playing variations on the types of characters they played in his other films. And with those other 2 movies, I couldn't like you, I couldn't stay locked in for the 90 minutes. I would watch a bit and I'd pause and go to something else and I come back to it. Watching A Traveler's Needs, because I was sort of stuck in the theater, I was forced to engage for 90 minutes, and it felt like it was 3 hours. I was constantly sneaking into my coat to, like, lift up my phone to see, like, "Okay, where are we at in the runtime here?
Right.
Is there going to be a story that progresses me forward? Oh, there's not? I can't grab onto it."
Hmm. Um, so some good things about the movie. Well, I found moments, some of the events that happened in the movie to be either uncomfortable or funny. So,
Okay.
that kind of kept me engaged. Uh, People were laughing, at my screening, so that kept me engaged. Uh, one of the reasons I wanted to see the movie was he shot this movie using a older camera, a camcorder. Um, I mean, tech that is even not even as complex as what we used for Cosmic Disco Detective Renee, uh,
Mhm.
the older prosumer camcorder. And then he didn't do a lot of effects. He didn't do a lot of post work. He made it as plain as possible. So I wanted to see what a movie like that would look like. It didn't look great, but it's interesting that he's doing movies in this ultra minimal way.
I mean, here's the thing, I don't find that particularly interesting because I don't think the movies themselves are interesting.
Hmm.
Like, I the go-to and my go-to reference for all this is, and people are gonna vomit in their mouths, is probably Kevin Smith.
Hmm.
When he started off with Clerks back in, almost 30 years ago, it's probably exactly 30 years ago he was shooting the damn thing at this point. Um, you know, very low budget tech. He used the people and the places that he had around him, and he would essentially set a camera and have 2 people talking, and just like a series of these scenes throughout the movie. A little bit of camera work, like when he goes up on the roof of the convenience store to film the hockey, but a lot of it is Dante and Randall behind a counter, cracking jokes, life observations, revelations, that kind of thing. and it moves, and you're not conscious of the fact necessarily that you're just watching two people side by side talk to each other. With
The
this
Kevin
film,
Smith's writing and comedy is much stronger than Hong Sang-soo's.
and that's my point. So when you talk about like, oh, he used an old camera and he kind of set it up and just let the actors, do their thing, and it's very minimalist. That's great, but as an audience member, I don't care
Mhm.
because I can walk by two people sitting on a park bench and just stand there and listen to them speak or not speak or whatever. And it's not necessarily a movie. I
Mhm.
mean, it is if I record it and I release it. Yes, it's technically a film in the way that Andy Warhol's Empire is,
Mhm.
12 hours of watching a building. And I felt in a lot of these cases, again, I don't know how much of it was improvised, how much of it was actually written down. This whole thing felt like an exercise in uncomfortability, more so than the other two films that we've discussed. I love the premise of this French lady in Korea trying to teach French to Koreans, and they're speaking English as sort of the common bridge between them, right?
Well, mhm.
Um, that's fascinating, especially because, and spoiler alert, she's not really teaching them. As the second couple, or I guess the first couple she encounters, she starts off with a young lady who's like a pianist, and we kind of encounter her and Iris, who's Hooper's character, mid lesson or at towards the end of the lesson. And we're like, what is this about? I don't quite understand what they're doing or what they're talking about. It's when we see this couple, this older couple, um, and they're kind of new clients or prospective clients. And they're like, okay, we were referred to you by a friend who recommends you highly. Tell us, what is your methodology? What's your education? And she says essentially, well, I'm not trained in teaching or language arts or any of this stuff. I have no textbooks. There aren't any courses. Basically, I sit and I talk to you. I try and draw out your emotions based on anecdotes, and then I use your responses to some very key questions to write those responses in French on index cards, which I give to you, and that's how you memorize, because core emotional and high emotional memories are great for memorization, and that will get you speaking. You'll start thinking in a foreign language to you and emoting in that language, within a couple of months, and then you're going to be fluent. That's a fascinating idea.
You're making the
But
movie sound interesting.
I am, because I would love to see this movie. The one gag, the one moment someone laughed in the theater is when in encountering that second couple, it's a long exchange that ends up on kind of this rooftop. They're sitting and they're all chilling together, whereas before they were sitting on a couch in this couple's living room, drinking this fermented wine or non, I don't know.
Well, totally,
Um, Okay, yeah, it was, it's like live bacteria, it's an alcoholic drink, and, it is interesting to learn about, I guess. But on that rooftop, when she starts asking these probing questions, you realize that she's asking these probing questions and guiding the responses so that the response is the exact response that she got from the student, or she drew out of the student in the first scene. So
mhm,
not only is it a gimmick of just writing down nonsense on cards and saying, here, memorize this, but it's all the same response.
mhm.
It's verbatim. And the person in my audience who found this amusing laughed because she realized, oh, this is the setup. This is the exact same dialogue as from the previous scene, which is clever. It's cute, but then it takes us about 10-15 minutes to get to the end of this scene, and it's just drawing out the punchline very slowly. And here's where she draws out the second sentence, and here's where she draws out the sixth sentence, and here's when she, with pauses in between that are like water torture.
Mhm.
Um, and that's when the movie was interesting. Later, we meet her roommate, this
Right.
young Korean boy, and the roommate's mother, who is understandably freaked out that her son, I don't know how old he is, probably out of college, has just allowed this, weird French lady to come and live with him. Are they romantically involved? Who knows? They're just friends. And the mom starts like yelling and freaking out. And I'm just watching this, wondering where any of this is going. And I look at my phone. I realize the movie's almost over. So the answer is it cannot go anywhere with the time we have left. So what was all this about leading up to it? So Sujewa, I'm going to stop rambling because I'm on the verge of becoming a Hong Sang-Soo movie with far more dialogue than in one of those films. I want you to unpack this for me.
I think this, for most people, this podcast episode would be more interesting than the actual movie. Um, so I think Hong Sang-soo we have to file in a separate category because just the stuff that you mentioned, right, in the hands of many filmmakers, something interesting, funny, weird could come out. Also dramatic, like I would, I and lots of other filmmakers I know, we would never release something like that movie in 2024 without doing music, without doing effects, without making it look good. I mean, there are so many tools now to make something interesting and engaging for regular people, right? Even if, the conversation is minimal. I mean, basically, you know, Jim Jarmusch's Mystery Train probably had, as much dialogue as this one, but that movie was super. I mean, comparatively, super entertaining, right? You like that? You like that movie, right?
Oh, I loved Mystery Train. I think a lot of it is atmosphere, time, place. Like we actually go places in
Hmm.
that movie. So when there's not dialogue, there's at least something to latch onto, or characters that you're actively thinking about because they're odd. These folks, and maybe this is the genius that I'm missing of capturing mundane, everyday people. But I can encounter mundane, everyday people without paying $13 to for the privilege on a Friday afternoon.
Hmm. Um, so, yeah, I mean, I could take those ideas that Hong Sang-soo put in this movie and make something that's much more entertaining. I mean, we've done it with Slow Romance, we've done it with Cosmic Discotheque Renee. Those movies are much more entertaining for most people than pretty much any Hong Sang-soo movie I've seen so far. I've seen maybe five or six. So I think these movies are kind of like, not entertainment. They're art projects. They're like documentary projects. They're like improvised projects. Maybe even like, maybe even like podcast episodes in a way, just people getting some ideas out. But when it's presented as a movie, you and many others, myself included, we expect a little bit of entertainment, a little bit of polish. It's 2024. These movies are well reviewed, and they're being released in place of someone else's movie. So yeah, it's a unique case. I think you saying a little bit like Andy Warhol. I kind of agree with that. These are unusual art projects that uh, are also promoted as narrative fiction features. Um, so, judging them outside of regular movies, I see some interesting things in the movies, especially, and this relates to what we were talking about earlier, making a lot of movies fast, which is what Hong Sang-soo does. But in my case, if I make a bunch of movies fast, if I realize just cannot be done at a level that makes sense for an audience, I would slow down. Instead of 12 movies a year, maybe it has to be six. Maybe it has to be three, right? Maybe the entire idea to do 54 movies has to be rethought. Each movie has to work, right? It has to be entertaining. It cannot be. I mean, if you're releasing it as a weird art project and just throwing it up on YouTube, that's fine. Then people can just find it and watch it. But I'm gonna release them as regular movies, and eventually it'll get to YouTube. So yeah, I think it's unusual. What Hong is doing is unusual. It's unusual that film festivals and distributors and critics kind of play along with it. You know, a lot of other filmmakers don't get that treatment. People expect, I mean, this movie, A Traveler's Needs, has much better reviews from critics than something like Gladiator 2, right? And you know that took a lot of work to do. Gladiator 2 is not that great, but you know, it's at least a movie, not just an art project documenting some people doing stuff, right? I mean, more work went into it. But I had a better time at now I know what Hong is doing, right? It's I don't approach it as a regular movie. So, but I have a hard time watching his stuff at home. So in the future, if he puts out something, and I'm sure he will put up, you know, like 50 movies over the next 2 years. If it
Well,
sounds interesting, I'll go see it at a movie theater. And if I want to see it, otherwise I may just pass on a lot of his movies. You know, maybe to catch up when I have some downtime, but not gonna make it a priority to rush out and watch every Hong Sang-soo movie.
well, it's funny because I mean he's got another movie marked 2024 by the stream.
Right? It's
Um,
coming out in December, I think. I mean, at the end of December by the stream.
See, and this is the dilemma. I opened the show by saying I was banning discussion of Hong Sang-soo movies, but it's almost like the other example I'd give is Wes Anderson.
Right.
You know, I watched a bunch of Wes Anderson films, and I did not get Wes Anderson movies. You know, Royal Tenenbaums, you know, Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. Basically, I watched all of them because they were highly acclaimed.
Right.
They did very well. You know, they were commercial successes, from what I understand, or you know, or at least critical darlings. And they had some kind of mainstream crossover, and I just didn't understand it at all. I thought they were pretentious and dull, and the kind of thing where you laugh because you're supposed to, rather than because you actually have a gut reaction.
Mhm.
Then I saw Grand Budapest Hotel. What was that, within the last 10 years or something?
Right,
And
last
whatever
so
yeah, was that?
yeah, not too old, 5, 6 years maybe.
Whatever it was, I connected with it,
Mhm.
and I was like, "Okay, now I feel like I could maybe go back and watch some other Wes Anderson films," and I don't know if I'll have a different reaction to them, but whatever that language was, talking about language, I feel like I learned something that helped me break through and understand the dialogue he was having with me as a filmmaker to an audience member.
Mhm.
Um, so perhaps when you say that he's got, Hong Sang-soo has a new film coming out, I guess probably in a couple of weeks, if you're saying the end of December, geez,
Right.
the temptation is, well, shoot, do I need to watch that? Do I need to go and watch his other films? Because I'm looking at IMDb, not that this is a marker of quality or anything, but I'm looking at his films. Okay, he makes a ton of movies, as you mentioned, but if you look at 2023 to 2024, his ratings from the audience, or I guess whoever rates these things, goes 6.4, 6.5, 6.6 for A Traveler's Needs, 6.8 by the stream. I mean, we're getting to the point where, come February, we might have achieved full mediocrity here.
That's right. And, but look, Grand Budapest came out in 2014, so that's 10 years ago. Time travels fast. But if you look at Hong Sang-soo on Rotten Tomatoes, his movies are ranked between 79% to 100% for critics.
Now you're going to tell me that that out of focus thing he did was one of the 100% ones.
It's up there. It's up there. Let me see. And also, anyone watching this episode, if you want to get Ian a holiday gift, send him a DVD or a Blu-ray of. Uh, well, I don't know what the name of the movie is. I forget. Hong Sang-soo's out of focus movie.
No, please don't. Please
Let me
don't.
see what it's in water. In water. 90% Ian. So just as people had to deal with Andy Warhol back in the day, you know, releasing his weird movies, and then they had to deal with the real movies, we have to deal with Hong Sang-soo if we feel like it.
But that's the thing is we don't because
That's right.
this is I love Andy Warhol, but one of the reasons I love Andy Warhol is because now I'm not an art history major by any sense, so I'll just say in terms of weirdness breaking mainstream, he
Mhm,
was kind of the person to do it first.
mhm,
Like, I'm gonna paint soup cans. I'm gonna paint portraits of Marilyn Monroe or film the Empire State Building for 12 hours and call it a film.
mhm,
Yeah, it is art, but then coming after that, you've got decades upon decades of people saying, look, I've got a museum installation where I literally collected bags of trash from around the city and I put one up for each day of the 365 days. And that's the project I sold to, Mocha for $175,000. I'm like, no, you do it. You get to be the pioneer.
mhm.
That's my stance. I'm drawing a line in the sand. Hong
The,
Sang-Soo is like that for me.
mm, the art piece, which is a banana, taped to a wall, that sold for $6.5 million or so recently.
Was the banana shellacked or something, or is it gonna rot? Like, how explain this banana to me. How does that work?
Yeah, I think the guy who, I mean, this sounds like some sort of a money laundering scam, right? Like, it makes no sense that anyone would pay any money for that art piece, right? But it's been reported that the guy who bought it ate the banana, but he also bought the rights to recreate that work. That so now, I mean, why can't I mean almost anyone could do it, right? Who's going to stop you from taping up a banana and saying that's your work of art? But this the buyer of that piece um, ate the banana, but he has the right to recreate it. He got a document from the original artist. So the art world has a bunch of borderline scammy things, and Hong Sang-Soo, I wouldn't say is as bad in that sense as some minimalist works or paintings or even Andy Warhol, but it's a unique, weird thing that's happening with Hong Sang-Soo. I mean, I don't. Why are all these critics giving these movies 90%, 100% ratings?
I don't know. Let me correct something I just said. I don't wanna put my frustration on Hong Sang-soo
Right.
because as I mentioned, he's hiring, I think that the actors that he hires are very talented. They're interesting in the context of the individual films. Part of the frustration comes in when you see them popping up from movie to movie. And yeah, you could say, well, Kevin Smith or Tarantino or whoever, he uses the same people in their films, they have the same kind of motifs throughout. Like we're gonna have you could play Hong Sang Soo bingo.
Hmm.
Okay, we're gonna have someone in possibly even the same diner eating that same dish. I can't remember the name of it. But
Some kind of
that
ramen,
pops,
right?
yeah, something like that. But the difference I think is that in those other filmmakers' movies, they're so stuffed with plot and character and development that they're like little bits of seasoning, right? With Hong Sang-soo, it's like, okay, now I'm gonna watch this person eat noodles for 5 minutes alone in this restaurant. And I saw that, 2 movies ago and the movie before that. And it's the same thing. It's not important to the plot. It's not even really atmosphere because he's just doing it again.
Hmm.
However, I will say he is out there making the movies he wants to make. He's found an audience. He's found a critical community of some note, I guess, that likes his stuff. So I can't be that upset with him. It's just that when I'm sitting down to watch someone who has this critical acclaim, I feel like there should be a disclaimer.
Hmm.
Like almost like you mentioned Gladiator 2. That's a bad example, but I'll say like Gladiator, the first one, critically acclaimed commercial success. When you're recommending something to people, there should be like, there's Hong Sang-soo good
Hmm.
and Gladiator good.
Right.
Like recommending a Hong Sang-soo film, I don't know that I could do that to, well, shoot, anyone. I don't know. I don't think I know any like diehard Hong Sang-soo fans.
Or
You?
or even in the art house space, you can say there's Jim Jarmusch good, then there's Hong Sang-soo good, right? Jim Jarmusch
Interesting.
good. What was that?
Interesting. I like that because that's you've got the mainstream bucket, you got the indie bucket, and you could probably even break it down further within that.
Yeah. Um, you know, Jim Jarmusch good can work for some people, even mainstream audience members. Some of his movies, who know nothing about indie film or who are not into just following indie film, and they're well-made movies. There's some humor in them. It's unusual. They could get into it. Whereas Hong Sang-Soo was 100% a acquired taste for some people. But I think, especially in 2024, it's fine to have artists, filmmakers like Hong Sang-Soo. I mean, this is the benefit, I guess, the benefit of the digital revolution and the internet and YouTube. You can have these small, unusual projects that may not appeal to lots of people, but they could still be out there for some people. Same way that music has a lot of variety like that. Painting has a lot of that. Novels have a lot of that, right? So film didn't really have that until very recently, until like in a way that's mainstream accessible, right? Until like 20 years ago, 20 years or so ago, because the digital filmmaking, which is what Hong Sang-soo does. I mean, he wouldn't be able to make these movies this fast if he had to do them, on film, because the cost would be too expensive.
Now, that and I've heard this from a lot of filmmakers, independent filmmakers, studio filmmakers about that very thing. That it frees them up, right?
Right.
But I'm wondering, would it be a good thing if Hong Sang-soo had that kind of restriction?
It
Would
might
he be making these would he be making these kinds of movies like, "No, maybe I do need to get to the point because this film is very expensive."
Right. Yeah, it might be. If he had I mean, he's self-funding and partially self-distributing these movies. Um, but if he had investors and producers and sort of a studio that is working with him and they had commercial expectations, he might be forced to do things differently. I mean, you know, making unusual movies, indie movies, underground, art house. I mean, we can go back to the Jarmusch example. He started off making weird movies from the beginning, but they also were interesting and entertaining to some degree from the beginning, starting with Stranger Than Paradise, right? Some of his movies are less entertaining, make less sense than others, but in all of them, there's craft. So lots of thought has been put into it. Even the stuff that he shoots on digital. Like uh, Patterson with Adam Driver was shot on digital, but he put a lot of work into it. So so you could do digital with a lot of freedom outside the system and still make compelling work. Whereas Hong Sang-soo, he's cranking them out, but uh, for a very small audience. I mean, he makes me think of Joe Swanberg, um, and some of Swanberg movies are much more entertaining than Hong Sang-soo's. But as far as the speed, at 1 year, Swanberg did something like 7 movies or so.
Well, I think, going back to the Jarmusch example and what you had said of like if we're trying to categorize something for recommending to a prospective audience member, I think Jarmusch and Hong Sang-soo are very apt because with Jarmusch, you can say, yeah, he's an independent filmmaker for sure, has a lot of like crazy ideas and interesting premises, but you can't say that you could watch Mystery Train and automatically think, oh yeah, this is the same person who made Only Lovers Left Alive.
Hmm, hmm.
Very different, just in terms of presentation, ideas, the caliber of actors, not trying to put anybody down from Mystery Train, but you've got, Tilda Swinton and Tom Hiddleston, right?
Mhm.
Uh, whereas with Hong Sang-soo, again, haven't seen all of his films, but I've seen three, and that should be a pretty representative sample of an artist's work to say, no, this is the same movie, over and over again, down to the aesthetics, down to the performers, might be some variation in the quote unquote story, but it's essentially the same. And if you're talking about the novelist film and In Front of Your Face, they're almost literally the same film.
Mhm.
You mentioned the example of museums that or sorry, like art, like paintings and things.
Right.
The difference is if I'm in a museum and I see a painting that I think is terrible, I can register that and move on to something that looks great. When
Mhm.
I'm evaluating a film, I am committed to 80 minutes, 90 minutes, 3.5 hours before I can make kind of an evaluation, unless I want to be one of those people that walks out after 20 minutes and just declares it sucks,
Mhm.
or that it's great. The door swings both ways. Kind of music is the same way. You can get in and out of a song in a few minutes and say, yeah, that was great, or that was derivative, or this is just like the same thing they've been making for the last 40 years or six albums.
Mhm.
Film is definitely a unique case.
Yeah, I'm working on, my movies. Yeah, I mean, the goal is, one, to get the first one done. And, maybe once I do 53 spaceships, maybe I'll go, oh, it's not necessary to make all the other movies. We can just go on to the next thing. Or I'll take much longer, 2 or 3 months, 4 months, whatever. I do want to make more movies, per year than just one a year. So I want to go to two, three, four a year. That would be great. So this 53 spaceships plan might help with that. So we'll see. But I'm going to make sure each one of my movies works independently outside of the series, and that even if it doesn't have famous actors, if it's just me and Aaliyah and a bunch of other people, um, that people can tell a bunch of work went into it, and like uh, I'm sure you find my movies to be more entertaining than Hong Sang-Soo movies because we put a lot of work into it.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the frustration is that, I like the performers that he has. I like some of the ideas that he has. Like one of the reasons I got into a novelist film and In Front of Your Face is because A, you recommended that we talk about them, and B, I went to I think IMDb and I read the synopsis. And like, oh, that sounds really cool. The synopsis of A Traveler's Needs sounds really cool,
Hmm.
and then you watch it and you're like, no, this should have been this Hong Sang-Soo should have sold this premise to a different filmmaker and had them do the story
Right,
because they would have actually done something that resembles what I was promised by the description.
right. Yeah, we can put a freeze on discussing Hong Sang-Soo movies because there are lots of other filmmakers. Plus, I'll have stuff coming out. Um, I think for the most part, my recommendations to you for filmmakers that you should check out and films that you should check out over the last few years have been pretty good.
Yeah, and this I think Hong Sang-Soo is pretty much the exception.
Hmm.
But what I love about it is it's so frustrating because I don't respond to it so much that I feel I love the conversations even if I don't love the movies.
Right.
And I don't have confidence that it'll be another Wes Anderson situation where one day I'll finally get Hong Sang-Soo. I just don't think I'm a Hong Sang-Soo person. And if you're out there and
Even
audience, well, hold on. If you're out there and you are a Hong Sang-Soo person, please comment down below and help us out with what we're missing and what the gateway drug for you was in terms of Hong Sang-Soo. What do I need to take in order to get it? Sorry, go ahead, Sujewa.
no problem. Yeah, I sometimes interrupt, but yeah, it's fine. Um, Hong Sang-soo is missing sort of for me when I watch it at home or even at the movie theater. Yeah, this one was. I mean, the first one that I saw at the movie theater was good. So if another one comes out, that sounds very interesting. I may go check it out at a movie theater. But overall, in his movies, it's missing craftsmanship. It's missing polish. It's missing entertainment. It's missing good writing. It's missing poetry. Like I've seen Jonas Mekas movies, no script, him just wandering around shooting stuff, cutting it together with some music. It works still. Like I think we talked about at least one Jonas Mekas movie.
Hmm.
So Hong Sang-soo is an interesting film world phenomenon, but yeah, the filmmaking it's not there. It's not at the level that we're used to in art house cinema.
It kind of reminds me, and this is something that you sort of started to touch on earlier about critical response.
Hmm.
And I wonder if because he is sort of a critical darling now, and I'm not wishing you know, professional failure on anybody, but I'm wondering if there will come a day when he's gonna release a movie and people are like, "You know what? We've been watching the same movie for a decade, and this kinda sucks."
Right.
And if that happens, will there be a reevaluation and be like, "No, he has this is the same thing we have been watching for 10 years. It was never that good. We just latched on to something about him to promote his work." It reminds me of years ago when the Fast and the Furious movies got to like movie 7 or 8. And I started seeing all these critical think pieces about, oh, these are secret masterpieces. They're not just big dumb blockbuster entertainment about people driving fast cars and jumping through space. There's something going on here. I'm like, no, there's not. They're just garbage entertainment. I got a lot of pushback for that. But then around the time Fast 10 came out, these same people were like, maybe these movies aren't very good. I'm like, yeah, you
Yeah,
think?
that's what
They
you.
never were.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna make, there has to be something interesting and entertaining to some degree. I mean, Warhol movies entertaining because they're so bizarre, right?
Mm.
And then there's horror movies and sci-fi movies that are badly done, but they're done in such a unique, bad way. It's entertaining, right? Then we have experimental things by first-time filmmakers. They're trying to do something. Maybe they didn't hit it, but at least they're trying something new, and it's a new filmmaker. So with Hong Sang-soo, yeah, I think you and I will have come to the point where we've seen some of his movies. I find some of this stuff interesting. I find his career as a phenomenon interesting, but as individual works of art slash entertainment, yeah, they're not there. They're not well made works.
I'm going to ask you this to do me a favor,
Sure,
Sujewa. If and when you see the next new Hong Sang-soo film or films
sure.
and you watch them, I want you to, at some part, compartmentalize this favor for me and think, based on our conversations, the last three movies of his we've talked about, would Ian watch this and get something new out of it that might approach a level of enjoyment? And
Hmm.
if that's the case, I'm relying on you to gatekeep for me.
Sure.
Then maybe we'll talk about it. If not, I'm fine to just never engage with this stuff again.
Yeah, yeah. We can. We There's lots of other filmmakers we can look at. Plus, most likely the next thing we talk about probably will be my next movie. So I hope to
Yes.
send that to you in end of December or at some point in January. Yeah, I'm using a lot of shots of spaceships and shots of things from all over the world. Something that I've never done before in my movies. Usually, it's just stuff in New York. So yeah, we kind of talk about the entire universe. How it came to be, possibilities, alternate theories about aliens. So there's a lot going on.
Well,
52 Spaceships is the opposite of any Hong Sang-soo movie, and it's going to be well done. We're taking time with building the performances, the look. Yeah, it's going to be and overall, it has to be a comedy. It's going to be funny. All of these movies in the series are going to be comedies. So all the weird stuff aside, as comedies, they have to work. So completely different from Hong Sang-soo movies.
well, I'm looking forward to to that and discussing all the movies you make next year. Excuse me. On
Even if
on
it's
that,
just one or two.
well, yes, even if it's one or two. But looking ahead, and I don't want to put you on the spot here, but this is just top of mind when you talk about other filmmakers to discuss. Is there anybody that's sort of on your radar that you want to talk about in 2025, whether it's an up and coming filmmaker you've heard about or someone from the kind of the archives of independent cinema that we've never touched on?
I'm gonna have to take a look. I can't think of anyone right now. There might be some good Godard movies out there that both of us might enjoy. I want to look deeper into that. Also, Agnes Varda. Also,
Yes,
Chantal. We haven't talked. We talked about one Chantal Ackerman movie that both of us didn't like, which was the Brussels
John
movie.
John Dielman. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
Jane Goldman. But she has some other movies that sound more interesting. And Love Diaz, I'm gonna take a look at his catalog. Apichatpong Satekul, he has uh,
Yes.
he has more stuff coming out. Yeah, who else? Pedro Costa. I don't think we've discussed any Pedro Costa movies, right?
I don't think so.
Yeah, we have to take a look at him. Um, he's got some interesting stuff. You know, he certainly puts the work in into his movies. He shoots them for like a year, I think, and improvised and scripted, and he's gotten some really good awards. And I've seen some of his movies; they're very interesting. I mean, sometimes difficult to get through, but very interesting. Yeah, there's always lots of indie art house, underground filmmakers to discuss. We'll take a look, and I'll send you some suggestions as I see them.
Awesome. We'll come up with a nice, fun roadmap for 2025, including your works. And yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah,
So
hey, if I'm cranking out a movie every 2 months, we'll just be talking about those.
we'll do we'll do sidebars about those other filmmakers, if nothing else.
Or we'll have
Um,
to do maybe 2 episodes a month, we'll see. Or,
oh my goodness.
episode every 2 weeks, we'll see.
All right. Well, I'm gonna put this episode in the books, and thank you again for. Excuse me. I've got a little
No
bit of a
problem.
cough. Um, Thank you for recommending this movie. Even though I had kind of a miserable experience with it and did not enjoy it, I did enjoy this conversation.
Awesome.
Um, and it gave me some clarity on what I like, what I don't like, and what I want to talk about moving ahead. So, yeah. Sujewa, take us out by telling us where we can see your stuff, what you've got in the hopper beyond what you've discussed here tonight.
Good discussion, Ian. I'm glad you checked it out, even though you didn't like it. And we came to the mutual conclusion that Hong Sang-Soo doesn't really work for us that well. I mean, if we have to stop and restart movies, you know, for days, and even for you at the movie theater, it wasn't exciting. Then he's not meeting the uh, polish, craftsmanship, excitement level that this show requires. So we need to we
That's
need
right.
to we need to look at other filmmakers. And also, if I ever send you a movie and you're like, "Wow, this made me I was not interested at all in this movie," we're not going to discuss it, obviously. So, so
Well, no, here's the thing though. I I like those cases as well because I'm open to being turned around
awesome.
or explained why it didn't work. I mean, if you had a compelling case as to what I'm missing with Hong Sang-Soo, I may, take that on board and try and, delve a little bit deeper. But in our conversations, the sense of it that I get is, yeah, he makes movies. He's got an audience and he's got some critical backing, but there is just something there that doesn't quite, click with us.
Mhm. The
I'm
movies
fine with
themselves don't work for us that well.
right. I am open to being wrong, and I get a lot of practice. So, all right, Sajua. Um, So yeah, all your information is going to be down below. There's a
Awesome.
lot of it. A lot of you're doing a lot. You're in a lot of places. So check
Getting
all
things
that
done.
stuff out. Was that?
Getting things done. Sorry about
Yes, sir.
interrupting.
Oh,
We're doing Robert Altman type dialogue here.
right. But if we weren't stepping on each other and there were long pauses in between, then we'd be in Hong Sang-Soo territory, and nobody
That's
wants
right.
that.
That's right. No one wants that. Yeah, let's have an awesome 2025, and we had a pretty good 2024, ups and downs, but we got things done. And yeah, watch for people listening. Check out Cosmic Disco Detective Renee. We're getting close to 500,000 views on YouTube, and probably my most successful movie so far.
All right. Well, thank you, Sujewa, as always, for the education, the conversation. And thank you out there who are watching this. If you like the show, please like, subscribe, and all that good business. Give us a thumbs up and check out Sujewa. All his information is down below, as I mentioned. And, this has been Indie Scene for 2024. It's been kind of an uneven year, but I think we're closing out strong with this discussion here. So join us back in the new year for something. We don't know what that's going to be yet, but
We'll
whenever
figure
that
it out.
is, whatever that is, what's that?
We'll figure it out soon.
We shall. Until then, thank you and take care.
And this 1 hour that we just finished, more exciting than most Hong Sang-Soo movies.
Very true.